What's up, everybody? Welcome back. And before we go on into Act 2, I figured I would just go ahead and go over my build and everything I kind of learned from playing in Act 1. Now, just for context, if you're not watching the walkthrough, I'm playing a hardcore character. This is my first experience with Path of Exile 2, Path of Exile in general. So, playing on hardcore, we made it to level 17, playing a witch. So we just got done beating the Mad Wolf of Ogum. Actually crushed through it. It's actually insane. So just talking about our skill tree, the things that we're investing in, kind of how the game plays, the things that we do to be successful when clearing mobs, and then how we kind of transition into boss fights. So starting off with our passive skill tree, you can see nothing special here. I took spell and minion damage mostly all the way through to the second node up here. Power of the Dead, minions deal 15% increased damage, minions have 3% attack and cast speed, and then pretty much everything to do with minions in these trees I took. Now going forward, probably going to keep on progressing straight through until I find the next useful minion node. Not a huge fan of the chaos damage, and not a huge fan of the critical hit chance for spells, so probably going to ignore these two and then keep going straight up just for anything to do with minions. Now on the other side, pretty much putting all focus into energy shield. These are basically just base percentage or energy shield increases in general. Don't really need to go for cast speed. I don't feel like my casting has been an issue at all. I don't really have any like delayed cast or time cast, so not going to look too much into casting speed. For our attributes, you can see I have 1 + 5 dexterity, +5 to strength, and then I'm getting a couple extra points of strength from gear, but basically just using that to be able to equip certain armor items. Some of the armor items have like an inherent, or even like the scepters have an inherent strength requirement, so anytime I run into like a point where I'm not able to equip something, I'll just dump a point into strength. I'll probably change those in intelligence later once I kind of round out exactly where I'm going. But this is the skill tree so far. Not sure if it's good. Not sure if it's optimal. Probably most optimal would be to ignore the energy shield for now and just kind of pump damage all the way up until like the middle. But for now, since it's hardcore, trying not to die, I'm going to go ahead and use energy shield as like a supplement to my minion damage, minion attack speed, so on and so forth. As far as skills go, we're not using our own casted skeletal warriors. The only skeletal warriors that we're using are the ones that come with the rattling scepter. We're using the rattling scepter in our main hand, and it gives us currently 2 level 5 skeletal warrior minions. I have raised shield as one of my options, but we're not actually using the ability. I'm just using the shield itself as kind of like a stat boost for armor and energy shield, a little bit of extra defense. For Unearth, let's go ahead and look at it. We got this up to level 3. I would probably feel pretty comfortable bumping this up to level 4 or 5. I use it fairly often. It's kind of our ability to keep pumping out new minions after we clear pack after pack after pack. I did throw minion instability on here. That way, when our tiny little skeletal minions, whenever they die, they explode and they give like 15% of their maximum life as fire damage. And you're going to kind of see that theme continue. For our skeletal snipers, we have skeletal snipers. We got those up to level 4. Kind of transitioning out of the skeletal sniper gameplay for now. They're really good on boss damage. However, we can't really utilize the poison effect because later on you're going to see our build has kind of transitioned into something that basically when you put the poison down, if you ignite an enemy that's within that poison, it'll blow the poison up, and it does a huge chunk of damage, especially when you have a bunch of enemies inside of it, but we don't get that damage over time effect from the poison. So right now I'm using them because I don't have enough spirit to support having 3 of my arsonists. So instead of running 3 arsonists, I'm running 2 snipers and 1 arsonist, but hoping to rectify that situation in the future. We're running the corrosion ability, which allows your poison to break up to 80% of their armor based on the poison damage dealt. So it just allows us to do more damage to enemies that are standing in the poison. It was very important early on. So I'm not going to say not to get the skeletal snipers, but definitely has some drawbacks as opposed to just focusing on using the arsonist. Now I'm also using concentrated effect, which deals 40% more area damage but 50% less area of effect. Usually when I'm using the poison, it's for a boss fight, and the bosses in this game, you can kind of keep them where you want them based on your positioning. So for more damage, less area of effect, as long as I can keep them focused in that one spot, it's just a damage increase. For Contagion, this is our damage over time, easy to apply and spread throughout our minions. We're using the Persistence ability, so it just gives you 40% more duration on Contagion, which I think is a base of like 6 seconds or 8 seconds, so this just bumps it up to whatever it might be. I think right now, I don't know if it shows updated. So it says the debuff is 5 seconds, so adding another 40%, you know, I'm getting an extra second or two on Contagion, which is just nice to not have to constantly reapply it every 5 seconds, and gives you an extra cast of another ability. But it's only at level 3 right now. Still super useful. Planning on keeping it going. However, if I'm going to keep Contagion, I need to start considering whether or not I'm going to like focus on a little bit of chaos damage in the build. I don't want to spread out too far. Next we have Essence Drain, which originally acted as our single target kind of high damage spell. Right now you can see I'm running Controlled Destruction on it. Applies a damage over time effect, but what I did with this support gem is it deals 30% more damage with hits and ailments, but it can't crit. So I kind of forego the ability to crit just for consistently higher damage, which I think mathematically will probably do more for me in the long run, especially because I'm not running or planning on using any critical strike nodes in the passive skill tree. So for now, I'm going to keep it, but I will say it's getting a little bit difficult to use Contagion and Essence Drain while also using my Arsonist explosions, my Impale minion, and my Flame Wall. So this might end up dropping off now that I don't have a problem with single target damage. Now I have the Arsonist. These are level 4. Basically, they throw a bunch of bombs. They throw bombs. If it goes through your firewall, it's going to make the bomb catch fire, add additional damage. You can see I've augmented it with Scattershot, which makes them throw less often, but makes them fire extra projectiles when they do throw. So instead of throwing 1 at a time, they throw 3 at a time. So if I have 3 Arsonists out, then I'll be getting 9 Scattershots down. Even though it does 20% less damage, you figure if you're throwing 3 extra, you still gain a pretty significant damage increase. Now it does make you attack 20% less and have a 20% lower cast speed, but in my opinion, things right now aren't living long enough for that to matter. Then I put Ignition on here. Not quite sure how useful this is being. Supported skills have 100% more chance to ignite. Things don't really seem to have a problem igniting. I'm not sure if that's because I'm running Ignition or because Flame Wall just kind of ignites everything instantly anyway. But just in case, I'm going to run it. Can't hurt, right? Unless I find something better, which I haven't really taken a deep look and kind of like program my head around how to improve these things. So I'll probably do that after I get into Act 2. Now we have Raging Spirits. This is what we used our first Spirit Gem whenever we killed the King of the Mist. Had to find this in the skill tree. I didn't really know that you could switch to other, I guess, skill trees. I thought it was just the 2 that were offered, but we ended up taking Flame Infusion, and basically what this does is whenever you use a flame spell, it summons Raging Spirits that are untargetable and kind of just fuck enemies up consistently every time you cast, and they last, you know, fucking 5-10 seconds or whatever, and you get 5 of them per flame wall, and they just ignite and focus on just any and everything. You can't really control them unless it's single target, but yeah, super strong. This kind of took the build from like decently strong. I was kind of crushing through everything using chaos damage, and then this I'll put some footage in the background, but like the Mad Wolf of Argument fight, it wasn't even challenging. So this definitely is something that if I knew existed at the very beginning, I would have looked into speccing immediately into Arsonist and Flame Wall immediately. But you can see I'm running the fire infusion, so attacks gain 25% of damage as fire, and they deal 50% less cold and lightning. These don't do any cold or lightning damage anyway, so you're not losing any damage, and you're just gaining 25% as extra fire damage. So very useful ability. Then we have Flame Wall. Basically, it's going to create a wall of fire in front of the character, ignites everything within the area. Any projectiles fired through the wall by you and allies deal added fire damage and inflict ignite on hit. So this isn't very strong on its own. Doesn't do a ton of damage. It's not like make or break as far as your damage goes. I'm running the Fortress augment on it. Basically, instead of a straight wall, it turns it into a circle with 50% less damage. Again, we're not going for damage. Having the circles just makes it easier to control, in my opinion, as far as getting it precisely where I want. This is how we summon our Raging Spirits, and those Raging Spirits are like the fundamental part of the damage of our spec. So you definitely need this, and then once you see how your Raging Spirits work with this, it kind of just changes your idea of what your necromancer or your witch is going to be. I was expecting to be like a damage over time, consistent, like use my minions to tank while dots wear them out. No, your witch turns into like a nuclear bomb when using this ability. So definitely recommend you guys speccing into this as soon as you get your Raging Spirits spirit gem, like immediately. You need to be like prepped and ready to put this on. Next, we got Pain Offering. It impales the skeleton on a spike, buffs your minions like crazy. Basically 29% more damage and 30% attack and cast speed. Now you do lose a minion, but again, the minions aren't really doing a lot of the heavy lifting as far as damage goes. It's kind of setting up the conditions for all of the abilities in conjunction. So losing one minion, not really a big deal. Now if you lose an arsonist, that kind of sucks because on console it's pretty random which minion gets selected. But if you lose an arsonist, that could suck. But again, you have your Raging Spirits, everything's kind of buffed, so everything is going crazy. It's kind of hard to get this ability off though in the chaos, especially when you're trying to focus on like Essence Drain and Contagion, and then Raging Spirits, and then Unearth, and then like once you finally get through like your cycle, you have room to like squeeze in one more ability, and sometimes, like most often, I forget to use this. So try not to forget it. Maybe when I cut back on some of the abilities that I'm using here, this will become more natural into the flow of my rotation. But for now, I'm going to keep it because the buff is just too strong to ignore. I need to stop ignoring it. Finally, Enfeeble. I just had an extra skill gem. Enfeeble is basically a debuff that you put on an enemy, makes the enemy do less damage. Bosses will do 11% less damage, and regular mobs will do 21% less damage. So again, if I can fit this into the rotation, that's great. But I'll be honest, I haven't even used it yet because things are dying so quickly, or things get so chaotic that like the focus is just on keeping those Raging Spirits going and then staying alive. So that rounds out our skills that we're using and our passive tree. I'll just jump into a map real quick and kind of show you guys how we're using it. For gearing, you don't really have a ton of options in the beginning. Like you can see right here, I have like lightning resistance, armor and energy shield, dexterity, kind of random assortment of gear. You're really looking for like the highest level of gear, and then with that highest level of gear, I would say, let's say I had a level 15 shield instead of a level 17 shield. If that level 15 shield had like spirit or fucking energy shield and armor, I would probably use that in lieu of this like +7 dex and 4 to 7 thorn damage. But eventually, like, levels matter enough to where like the highest level equipment is what you're going to want to focus on. I'm using a cold resistance ring because in my opinion cold is the hardest debuff to deal with. So if I can avoid that or lessen that, I'm always going to go with it, which is why I'm also using this charm that helps when it basically grants you immunity to freeze whenever you get frozen. And then here we have maximum life, mana buff, and life regeneration. So you're going to have some mana issues in the very early game. So finding equipment that boosts your regeneration or your overall mana is just going to help you out and keep the build. Like, you're going to be able to just tunnel into enemies. Especially like right now I'm having no mana issues. and it's just nonstop. Like I can just chain pull, chain pull, chain pull, and it's really nice. For your weapon, you're gonna start with a wand, but I highly recommend using the scepter in your main hand. And the reason why I suggest that is because like you're not gonna be the main damage dealer here. Your minions and your spirits are. So your job here is to survive on hardcore. So using a shield is gonna provide you with the extra defense, and then you don't really need the extra ability that a wand provides. You're gonna have enough. I already am overcrowded on abilities with the controller, so use the scepter. And on your scepters, if you're running a minion build, you're gonna want to run the rattling scepter. It automatically comes with minions based on the level of the scepter, and then you're gonna look for increased spirit. Like that's number one. Increased spirit. 30% increased spirit allows you to summon more minions, gives you more options, and then increased mana. Allies in your presence gain 3.4 life per second. So overall, you're just looking for a good rattling scepter. All right, let's jump into the game so I can show you guys just a little bit. Yeah, go ahead, baby. Go play outside. Okay, y'all need to change first. All right, let's jump into the game real quick. So we'll just go to the manor. This is where we just came from. Sorry, my daughters are all home on holiday break, so. All right, yeah, so we're going to just jump into the Algam Manor, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you guys will just see kind of like how the build plays out. And what I mean by I got to start cutting back on some abilities. So there I have my 2 Skeletal Warriors, I have my 2 Snipers, and my 1 Arsonist. So I usually open up with Essence Drain, and then try to get 1 minion to die like instantly, so I can start spawning more, because they do carry contagion and whatnot to other enemies. But you can see like with the Raging Spirits, you can literally just sit here and cast Flame Wall and things will die. Like you don't even need the other abilities. And because the Raging Spirits are so strong, even though like I want to play with some damage over time abilities, getting them applied, it's almost like putting an effort where I'm just wasting clicks on the mouse or on the keyboard, on the controller. So while it is nice to be able to apply dots and spread them, it would have no different result if enemies were just dying faster overall from spamming R1. So I still need to play around with it, see what the difference would be. But right now, like there's my poison, but immediately the poison gets ignited by the flame wall or the Raging Spirit. So it's almost pointless to have that ability on the bars. But when you can poison an enemy, it does a lot of damage and it breaks their armor, does a lot of good stuff. So there is benefits to using this. It's just pretty difficult to manage. You can notice I haven't even touched like Pain Offering or Enfeeble, anything like that yet. So let's see if I can get a Pain Offering off. Nope. Sometimes Pain Offering just doesn't work. And it's pretty frustrating because the buff is significant enough to where you could probably rely on that buff to cover like a pretty expansive amount of damage. But when it doesn't work, you're literally just wasting time, wasting energy. Now the name of the game on hardcore is obviously survival, so that's why we've spec'd so heavily into energy shield. You can see right here, I mean, I'm level 17, this is like a level 16 place, and even like the puddles of blood on the ground are still very deadly. So you need to focus on some survivability. I know a lot of the build guides online are probably showing like what the build looks like with maximum damage, but that's because those guys are playing in softcore and they don't have to worry about dying. They could just try again. They could just go again. So we don't have that option. Well, you do, but if you're trying to stay true hardcore, you don't have that option. So survivability and paying attention, like you want your build to not be so complex that you can't look at your feet during an engagement, because that is what kills you in hardcore. Not looking at your feet, not seeing what's on the ground, not seeing what's, an enemy loading up to attack you. You want to make sure you have some things in place that when you do get that tunnel vision, because especially playing this class, you were going to get that tunnel vision. When your minions are out there rocking and you got flaming spirits going, it is very easy to kind of just get lost in that tunnel vision. But having, a shield, a bunch of points invested in energy shield, later on resistances, like you're definitely going to want to start focusing on that stuff early, or else you're going to find yourself back in Act 1 immediately going with the next time you face like a challenging area. But yeah, you can see, kill a pack, resummon all the enemies that just died in that initial pack, and then you just literally just keep the ball rolling. Now you can see the minions, even though I've invested a little bit into minion survivability, they still do die. And I'll say the main reason why they die is because of on-ground effects. It's very easy for the minions to just get stuck in the on-ground effects. Oh, I forgot to mention, the arsonists also have the ability, you see those little red orbs that are like spawning over my minions' heads? That means that they're close enough to death where I can detonate them. So I can use my arsonist ability and he'll make them explode, and it does a ton of damage, especially when you have like 10 of them ready to explode. You ignite those in a pack and things just die. So good use. You can see, I mean, like even right now, I'm in danger of dying like constantly. So that's pretty much how the build works. I wish I could show you the Count Geonor fight again right now, but I'll probably just put it in the background during the video so you guys can see. I didn't change anything on my armor or on my setup from that fight, so everything is the exact same. So if you use this build, some common sense, not saying it's the best, most optimal build, but this will get you through Act 1 with minimal issues. Now, how it's going to stand up, again, this is my first time playing PoE. I've never made a build before, but as of right now, it's standing up in Act 1, and I'm hoping to see it stand up going into Act 2. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hope this helps anyone trying to hardcore grind. I'm going to go ahead and get prepped to jump in Act 2 and continue the series. Catch you guys on the next one.